This wouldn't be a talk from a privacy person without me revealing a bunch of personal data about me. So for some of you, I am a new face. As Philippe said, I joined in September, but this is a bit of a reunion of sorts because I actually was one of the founding co-chairs of the Privacy Interest Group back in 2012. So it's a bit of a homecoming for me. But I've had a lot of other privacy roles before I came here in a lot of different places. So I was in industry doing privacy engineering work at Apple and at Google and doing privacy engineering and research over at Cloudflare. I also had some time in academic research. So my PhD and my postdoc work was in usability around privacy and security. I also did a Master of Laws in Law and Technology with a focus on privacy. And I spent time in the government in Canada at their regulator at the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada. So wore a lot of different hats, worked in different industries, looked at different aspects of the privacy issues, and they're complex. And so I would say that having an interdisciplinary background really helps when you're trying to tackle a problem with this degree of complexity, with the human factors, and the policy and the technical aspects. So today we only have a small number of minutes to go through some highlights of some of the work. So I'm going to focus on a couple of the new working groups that have been created end of last year, and some of the current and planned work, and a little update about the privacy principles. So first, the Privacy Working Group, which was launched in October of 2024. We have our chairs, Christine Runiger, Nick Doty, and Pete Snyder. And they were in PING, the Privacy Interest Group that I just mentioned, which that one has closed, and now we have the Privacy Working Group. And I have some highlights there from the charter. The idea was really now things are coming to wanting to go into the recommendation track to standardize the technical mechanisms, in this case, for privacy, trying to be sure that things are actually adopted by the user agents and the websites, because we want these principles to be actually realized in practice. But just like with the Privacy Interest Group, continue to conduct reviews and produce guidance for the different groups who are developing standards, who are trying to implement privacy well. So they're still there as a place to provide you with that input. And of course, many of the work items, there's still the Privacy Community Group, and things will feed in from there. And some work items have been inherited from the previous interest group. Well, again, I'll mention a few items. During the regulatory session, people may have heard a bit about the global privacy control. The first public working draft came out in November of last year. So this is the signal where if that's enabled, then it is expressing a do not sell or share preference from the user. So it's supposed to be a direct signal about the preference that the website is expected to respect, stimulated by some of the privacy regulation, particularly the California Consumer Privacy Act. And the idea was to have a very simple, clear signal. Those of you who were in the regulatory breakout and heard a lot of discussions about the need for clear explanations may be happy to hear that there's an accompanying document being delivered, which is legal and implementation considerations, which may be a helpful explainer. So we're already trying to fulfill that need. Also, I will mention the challenge around browser fingerprinting. There is a guidance document. This work was begun in the Privacy Interest Group and has now moved to be a group note in the Privacy Working Group. And really things are being updated. That work, we've added an editor and we're updating the document. Also, these questions around the difficulty of dealing with browser fingerprinting has made us think about the possibility of a workshop, which is early planning. This might be like a mini workshop, because we have this issue of having to optimize. You're expanding the functionality, providing lots of great functions for users, but it will increase the fingerprinting surface. And so how do we have these conversations? How do we make our choices? How do we make the choices that work well for users? This is a difficult and important problem. So again, I welcome feedback about how we might carve off a useful piece of that conversation to make some concrete progress. Also some potential future work. Maybe we may pick up on the bounce tracking. So again, the very quick, for people that aren't familiar, this came after the idea of, well, what happens without third-party cookies? So this is a way where you will navigate to a tracker domain at the top level of the browser tab, setting and reading the first-party cookie, and then quickly redirects away with a request that encodes the value. of that first-party cookie. So it's semantically functioning like a third-party cookie. And so for privacy purposes, what we need to do is reduce or eliminate the ability of bounce tracking to recognize people across contexts. So now we move to the Private Advertising Technology Working Group, again launched in November. Nicely, as in their charter, it will note that this was motivated by the ethical web principles. So again, a big challenge, trying to support the advertising that is used to support, of course, much of the content on the web, but acting in the interests of users. So providing strong privacy assurances, as you will note, using predominantly technical means. And the focus of the current work is in privacy-preserving attribution. So this is a browser API for measurement of performance. So trying to find out things about, you have a campaign, how did this lead to like a conversion to a sale, for example. And this is being done in aggregate. So this is how the idea of doing the measurements matches with how do you minimize the privacy risk to users. In this case, a lot of the work that is happening is in conjunction with privacy-preserving measurement work that's happening over in the IETF, because what's provided is an aggregation server. So again, if the user agent trusts that, it will use that agent. It will say, I will choose that aggregation server to do that aggregation within some set limits. So they're doing some really interesting and complex work over in the IETF, also in the PAT working group, to try to bring these together and solve a very difficult problem. Future work may be around looking at different stages of the campaign. You could do measurements at lots of different points. Maybe you're looking at what happened using it for interest-based advertising. And maybe there's things you're doing around fraud prevention or detection for ads, maybe looking at what happened after your campaign. And I'm noting there's the first face-to-face meeting, which will be happening on the 10th and the 11th of June, which should be very exciting. And then a quick note on the privacy principles. So this is currently a note with a proposal to endorse it as a W3C statement. So similar to the ethical web principles, I've just put the abstract, up there. There's a set of core principles, things around what happens when accessing personal data or requesting permission. Sites and other actors should specify the purpose for which the data will be used. That sort of a statement. And so you might be wondering what's happening with that. There was a lot of discussion around these, and the additional discussion led to some substantive changes to the principles. And so we're currently doing a subsequent review of these changes with a subset of the AC until April 11th. So you would have seen a poll being announced. So if you're answering a poll, note that's open until the 11th. But of course, I know I've been up here a lot this time, but I'm always happy to talk about privacy matters. So you email me, find me on the Slack and the IRC, grab me here anytime, and I'm more than happy to endlessly talk about privacy. But my time is done. Thank you so much.